Sebastian Dooley, you are Senior Fund Manager at Principal Asset Management. Thank you for joining us on BiTV.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
Principal Real Estate recently announced the final close of its Principal European Data Center Fund, raising 297 million euros. What market fundamentals attracted the fund's 14 institutional investors to the European data center sector? Sorry.
I can't speak exactly for all of our investors, but from our perspective, it's a sector that's going through a very interesting period at the moment. If we look at the demand side, we've seen take-up increase. And if we look, for example, across the main four markets of Europe, Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, and Paris, CBRE have recorded take-up for co-location of around 50 megawatts per year up until around 2015. 2016, this went up in quite a big jump to just shy of 200 megawatts. And it stayed around that level, sort of around 200 megawatts of additional take-up per year until about 2020. And then we see it jump again to over 350 megawatts per year. And now for this year, they're forecasting for those markets 480 megawatts of take-up. So we've seen a huge jump in the annual take-up, going from that 50 megawatts to very close to 500 megawatts over a period of a few years. And this demand, coming through has been matched by increasing challenges on developing out new sites, be that as a result of sourcing the power connectivity, so the physical infrastructure bringing power to sites, be that local municipalities and governments becoming more selective about where these assets go. And then also land, as is the problem, or a challenge, I should say, with a lot of real estate across Europe. So as a result of that, we've seen very interesting fundamentals for people who are owning these assets and very interesting intrinsic value remaining in assets that are there. You mentioned before this that you spoke with me before we were raising our fund. I think there has been a big change in the market since that point in time. And that is AI. It's definitely a buzzword which is going around a lot at the moment. But from a data center perspective, it is having a very, very significant impact. We've seen it more with our investment activities in the US to date, and it's a trend that's definitely coming over here. So whereas before a large data center campus would be up to 100 megawatts, now we're seeing multiple 100 megawatts requirements coming out to develop out data center campuses for AI, especially the model training element. And that, again, is putting a really big step change on that demand side in the sector.
You mentioned an interesting supply-demand imbalance for investors, but also challenges for investors and developers looking to create new data centers. The fund has already invested in 5 assets. What is your roadmap as you continue to roll out this strategy?
Oh, of course. So we've got our target is to have at least 60% in the UK, France, Netherlands, Ireland, and Germany. And so far we have got presences in the Irish market, the UK market, and the German market. And we do see those being very important core markets across Europe. But we're also seeing, as a result of that supply challenge, a really interesting spill out into other markets as well. So especially around Southern Europe, you've seen a lot of sort of demand growth over the last few years. So a lot in Spain, so Madrid, Barcelona, and Italy as well, around Milan. We're also seeing the Nordics become even more interesting, and that's largely as a result of sort of the abundant green power that is there. And especially when it comes to the AI model training, where it's less latency sensitive activities, we do expect to see a lot more demand come through there. And then also Central Europe is becoming a very strong growing market over the last few years as well. And so we do see potential to invest there as well. I think at the moment we've got high level in our mind what we want our portfolio to look like, but we are opportunity driven, looking for interesting fundamentals where we can.
You mentioned France as part of the core markets that you are targeting. I can't help but notice that you haven't invested in France yet. So Businessimo being a Paris-based media, obviously I have to ask, what role could France play in this strategy targeting data centers for Principal?
Sure. It's not in there through a lack of trying. I think we're definitely very keen to build out a presence in France, and it's an important flag for us to have in the fund, given that it is one of the top markets across Europe. Either Paris, Marseille would be a very good dream as well, but I think stock there is relatively limited, and development there is very tricky as well. It definitely is a very key market for us. Demand sort of came through strongly a few years ago. It's slowed down slightly in more recent years, but we do still see it being as very important.
Okay, thank you very much, Sebastian Dooley, Senior Fund Manager at Principal Asset Management. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Thank you all also for being with us, and we'll see you soon on BiTV.